Welcome to Asia Live today. Today we head to our France 24 bureau in Beijing, where we join our correspondent, Rebecca Hume. Hello, Rebecca. Tell us what's making the headlines in the Chinese press and media today.
Well, we have the Global Times here first, and the headline is just reading here. It's talking about Obama. It's saying that he is afraid to start airstrikes with Damascus. Just above the headline, it's reading that he hasn't got the backing of other countries and that he's also hasn't yet got the backing of Congress. Now, this Global Times story, it quotes, well, it's using a metaphor to describe Obama here. It's saying that Obama is blinking, meaning that he is hesitating over his decision. And they're saying that he can't keep his eyes open. They're saying it's weakening American foreign policy. It's rather making them look bad. They've even quoted the Russian government and Putin. Putin is making fun of Obama, saying that as a Nobel Peace Prize winner, he's saying he's ready to go to war.
And Rebecca, in addition to the Chinese attacking what they call Obama's weakness over action in Syria, the Chinese press are talking about a high-profile corruption case there, aren't they?
They are indeed. This is coming from the China Daily here. This is the other English-speaking language newspaper. Now, it's talking about the dismissal of another top official. That's Jiang Zemin, who was the head of the commission which oversees all of the state-owned enterprises here in China. So a very, very leading figure. He's been dismissed on corruption, and this comes just days after the national security chief was also dismissed for corruption. Now, what's interesting here is the national security chief was very close, one of Bo Xilai's closest aides, Bo Xilai being the Chongqing chief, who was on trial just last week for corruption. So it's very interesting to see what's going on here. It's very much this corruption crackdown seems to be a political process which is securing Xi Jinping and the government's position quite tightly.
OK, well, thank you for the press review. Finally, you've got a report on a very serious problem in China, and that is desertification in Inner Mongolia. Tell us more about that.
Indeed, one of China's biggest problems is how to produce electricity without sacrificing the environment. Now, according to a Greenpeace report in Inner Mongolia, desertification through coal extraction and processing is rampant. It's a huge problem, in particular along the Wulan-Mulun River. You can see hundreds of coal processing plants which are causing the desertification.
Here is our well. There used to be plenty of water, as well as 10 meters deep. Now it's totally dry.
To access water, the government had to dig a well at 150 meters, but that was not deep enough. The shortage has disrupted Mr. and Mrs. Wulang's raising of their livestock. They used to own hundreds of sheep, horses and other cattle. Now that has finished.
We have far less sheep than before because there is far less grass in the pastures than before, or the grass is of bad quality. So I had to sell most of my livestock.
The coal industry all along the neighbouring river is the reason for such little access to vital resources. In China, coal supplies up to 75% of electricity. This industry needs all the water, and the result is a blatant drought. On the land, it's the same problem. Mr. Wulang shows us the pastures where grass grows for his livestock. Here it is diminishing on a land that is already drying up.
See? Here, we had to remove the irrigation pipe. Before, it ran across the whole field. Now there is no more underground water. How can you grow grass? Before it used to grow that high.
The nightmare doesn't end here. Nearby there are sand dunes. Desertification is spreading, and that isn't going to stop. The trucks carrying coal are constantly coming and going. The industry continues to expand. A few kilometers away, some farmers have been relocated after being moved off their land to make way for coal extraction.
Now my only means of receiving income is by reselling waste. And I hope someday the government will give me real compensation for the land that I've lost.
Seeking compensation for their land is probably the only hope for these farmers. If the Chinese government doesn't act quickly, Inner Mongolia will turn into a barren desert.
So, Rebecca, why is this desertification continuing despite the government's promises?
Well, really, it's a failure on the Chinese government's green policy that was brought in. That was brought in by the previous president, Hu Jintao. They brought in a green policy. It was called the Green Wall of China. It was replanting of trees, and it was to run from Inner Mongolia to Heilongjiang. I mean, it's a huge expanse of land, and they just haven't achieved the aims of that replanting. They're in a real catch-22 because it goes against the interests of the coal industry. We have to remember China relies on 75% of coal for its electricity, so all of its electricity, pretty much 3/4 is produced from the coal processing. So it's a real catch-22 when you have a huge population, 1.3 billion, who need electricity. So it's a real issue for the government here, how to balance that out.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Rebecca. That was Rebecca Hume there with today's Asia Live from Beijing.